continue. You open up your file over here. And then what we're going to do is we will create a section. Okay, the section tool is available here on the left, right? So for neatness, you can just click on design. This will reduce the real estate that it has over here. And then you can click on viewpoint here. Okay, you will notice that all of this user interface is grayed out. Why is that so? Because now currently we are in the 3D view. If you go back to your ground floor plan or any floor plans for that matter, then you will see that the user interface will no longer be grayed out. And you can select the section tool over here. And you can place your section. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out and I will click on somewhere here and click on somewhere here. Okay, this will determine the length of the section. And you'll notice that now you have a eye symbol as well as this little triangle here in the middle of the line, which will change as you move. So this will indicate where you want the section to be facing after you have drawn this. So what I just want you to do is move it to the left, right? And you can click. Okay, so now you have created your section. And you will notice that on the right hand side in your project map over here, it shows this section 01 as well. Okay, so just double click on this to show the section that you have just drawn. Okay, there are a couple of other viewpoints that you can indicate. If I go back to ground floor plan, you can create an elevation, you can create interior elevations, details, worksheets, and even a camera to determine 3D views. Okay, all this you can experiment with, but you'll not be part of the lesson proper. Okay, what we want you to do now is, say for example, after you have drawn this section, right, and you want to adjust the section, you can select the section and you can also move it. Okay. Once you have done this, if you go back to your section, either via the project map or just over here on the tab, you will notice that it has changed as well. So as always, through the past few lessons, right, for Archicad, the controls are always via the black and the magenta dots. Okay, if you were to click on them, you will notice that there could be options here where you can stretch or you can move. So take for example, now I want to stretch this and I will move it inside of here. Okay, I can stretch my section to this portion and just take a look in your building section, what will happen. So essentially, this will also update the section view, the extent to which you will cut your building. And the cool thing about this is that it's intuitive. So say for example now, if I'm in the section, right, and I hover to the right hand side over here, okay, I click on it and now I can move it to the right. And it will also update itself in the section tool. When you go back to your ground floor plan, the section annotation line will also update itself. Okay, so this is very useful uh, for as a BIM software, because essentially when you generate sheets, right, you no longer need to um, waste time trying to update this kind of a two-dimensional annotation categories. Okay. The next thing that you can also do is, you see now my section tag is connected, is selected, right? I can just use Control T, and you can use this same shortcut to edit any properties of uh, elements within your Archicad, be it the 3D model or 2D annotation like this. You can adjust the section ID, the reference ID over here, as well as the name, right? So for example, now I can call this my cross section, right? I can also adjust whether or not this is infinite, right? Or it could be limited. Okay, I just want you all to try this. You click here. This is not in the notes, and click OK. But I find that this is very useful. Okay, so after you have clicked this, you can select on this left-hand side um, arrow over here, a line over here. And now I want to just say, for example, I want to concentrate only here. Okay, and we go back to our cross section. Now it will update itself. Okay, so this is very useful. For example, you want to take spot sections of like staircases, spot details, right? And then you can intuitively adjust the views within your Archicad. All okay so far? Okay, now what we're gonna do, let's just go back to the ground floor plan. Okay, so this is our ground floor plan. You'll realize that with the introduction of the staircase, when we go to the first story, you will see the staircase being shown, but not the rest of the building, right? So you can select the staircase now, and then you can press Ctrl T. And then what I just want you to do is under the floor plan display over here, right? Currently now, it is shown as relevant bottom story. Okay. If you were to select this, can you see that the preview here would change, as well as this? Okay. So this essentially allows you to customize how you will want the staircase to be displayed. Okay, so for example, now I click OK, right? And I will go back to my ground floor plan. Control T. So choose this, click OK, and you will update the display of how the staircase will be shown. If you were to Control T and shift it back, over here, and then now it will revert back to this option. Okay. Now I just want you to change the section tag and move this to the staircase, just entirely only to the staircase, which you can easily achieve by clicking on the lines over here. And let's just go back to the cross section. So now we are really just focusing, okay, sorry, in terms of this portion here, I also want to just focus on the staircase. Yep, like what I mentioned just now. Now you will notice that under the story settings over here, this is at a standard 3 meters. Ground floor is at 0 meters. Okay, so there is a keyboard shortcut for you to quickly adjust the levels between each of them. So by pressing Control 7, that gives you the story settings. And you can adjust each individual height. So for example, now, if I were to change my ground floor height to next as 350, right? And then I just click somewhere else, you will notice here that it automatically changes the first story to 3150, and you will recalculate what level 2 will be as well. Okay, if I were to also check this and adjust this to 3150 and just left click anywhere else, it will again recalculate the height between the levels. And then just to be neat, I will also change this to 3150. Okay, and then I'm just going to click here. And you will notice that essentially not only does it adjust the levels, right? It will also change the 3D model as well. The staircase increases in height, and this difference in height from the level allows and accommodates for the floor finish level. So there will be a structural level plus the floor finish for the last step to be aligned accordingly. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my first story now. Okay. And we want to be able to see what is underneath our um, levels below. And you can click on this particular button over here. Okay. So this is the toggle for the display for your tracing purposes. A shortcut for this is alternate F2. Okay, I'm just going to use alternate F2 now instead of clicking. And immediately you will see that I can see the computer displays the outline of the elements that are below in a sepia color. If you were to click on alternate F2 again, or this button again, it will toggle between these two visibility states. Now, what I want you all to try is to click on this triangle here, and you will be able to adjust the settings by clicking on the last uh, option here, trace reference, right? So this is what we mean by the tracing. here, this is the default color, which is the sepia color. Okay, you can always adjust this to another color that you feel comfortable to work with. For example, red, right? And that will show off as red. Okay, you can also adjust the active to be blue. So you will naturally see that now the staircase is blue. Why is that so? So active meaning that whatever that you can are supposed to see on this particular level, then that's the active level. Whatever that is red is whatever that is below. And you can also adjust these settings, right? So you can click on this, and instead of saying show the below this current story, you can also show above, or in fact, you can show the entire model. This is useful in future when you are modeling with multi-story buildings and you want to reference different layers, different levels. Okay, for now, we don't have another level above, so we're just going to leave it as below current story. Okay. Another thing is there are options here whereby if you hover over, you can see temporary displays reference display. Okay, so whereby you can move your reference display like so, right? Just to, so I click this and I move this thing. Do you know what this is helpful for? Sometimes you may want to see something that is overlaid, right? And you want to see what is on this current level better. So this is a good way to use this function. You can also toggle between different fill zones, right? This is a simpler um, display because sometimes this may be too much. You only want to know the outline of what is below or what is above. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to start to model the second story, as in the first story, which in Singapore context is the second story, second level. So go back to design. You can minimize the viewpoint here, go back to design and select the wall tool. So this is kind of something like what we have done in the prior lessons. And just to be efficient, I'm going to click on this and hold, and then choose the third option so that I can draw a rectangle with diagonal points. Okay. And I'm going to again hover to this corner point here until you see the tick, left click, and then you come to this and then left click. Okay. You will notice that I'm not too afraid of having different adjusting to have different walls, right? Because I can always go back to use this command. Remember? So I can choose this and then I can inject, and then inject, right? So this is a very useful tool that we have shown you earlier on to be able to reassign difference in walls. Okay, so just to be neat, this one I can change this and change this. Okay. So we can go back to our first story view, right? And you will notice something that is different between this wall and this wall. Because of the fact that we were snapping to this corner, right? Even though they are the same walls, ideally we have to adjust this point, right? You can adjust this to snap to this point. And similarly for this, you can snap to here and here. Yeah. You remember in the first lesson I was telling you about sometimes Archicad um, makes you very impatient because just now I tried to click right and then I shift it there because for me the circle animation has not completed but I already clicked so it didn't really register that I wanted to stretch this point. Yeah, see? And then wait for the circle and then can move. Okay. And now when you check in the 3D, this should be fine. Hmm? The align tool is over here. But using this snapping tool is useful also because then you can always stretch and align your walls accordingly. Sorry? Oh, this one is here. Yeah. This one is alternate F2. Or you can always click on this square and then click on trace and reference. Okay, so just now you were asking, right, about the align tool. So you choose this and you choose this and then you click here, then it will align each other together. I repeat again, you look at my screen. Okay, so instead of dragging the nodes, you select this wall and then this wall, and then you click on this button over here, intersect, and then it will format it accordingly. Okay. I'm gonna toggle this back, and my wall here is slightly off, so I can just, ooh. Yep, something like so, and then select these two and intersect. Okay. Select these two and then intersect. Yep. So now it's nice and clean. Okay. So go back to your first story now, right? And then we are just going to start to have a similar layout, right? We will use the wall tool again, and we can now just, instead of using the diagonal, we will use the chained tool. So it's kind of like a polyline. It's the second option after you click and hold. And I'll just say select here to here to here. Okay. So you don't have to be too worried about being super accurate, because as I've shown you just now, you can always drag it and drag it to align. And finally, just select both of them and intersect. Okay. So this is much better for people like me who are not very patient. Okay, delete this one. Okay. And you can repeat it for the other side. Oops. Okay, and then just shift it. Select both and intersect. Okay. So after you have checked it on your 3D, go back to your first story. And we will repeat what we have done earlier on, which is the ground floor slab. Click the slab tool here. It's the fourth icon. And we just double click here and just customize the display of this particular um, slab. Okay, I want to go down to see the cover fields here, right? So by right, this is not displayed. You have to click on the checkbox over here. And then you will now see that there is a cover field here. So this is essentially more of a display um, user interface. Click OK. It will essentially still be the same. What's this? I think I accidentally clicked something. Okay. You will essentially see it in 3D as the same kind of slab. So same thing, use this option over here, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this reference plane to be at the edge, okay? And then now I will just click and hover. So I hover to this corner. And now with this setting here, we will be able to snap the floor slab right to the edges of the wall. Okay, so to check, just click on 3D. And now you will notice here in 3D, the slab looks exactly the same as your first story plan. Sorry, your ground story plan. But when you go back to your first story, right, the way it is displayed here is with the cover field, which is the line. So you all understand now the concept. So essentially, this is just to have different two-dimensional representation. The material of it is still the same as the generic slab. When you do a quantity takeoff, it will still do it as per the generic slab in terms of concrete. Okay, it will not make it be a timber with which is what this annotation appears to be like. Okay, so now we can always switch this thing off already, the trace reference, because we just want to concentrate on our first story. Okay, and this is very important for you all to know now as a technique to be able to create voids in your slab. Okay, a lot of people always make a mistake by not selecting this slab first before they draw the void. The workflow is always to select the slab that you want to draw a void from. Then you click on the slab tool, and then you will click on where you want the void to be. Okay, then now you will see your void. When you go to the 3D, you will see that this all works out. Okay, I will repeat again, okay? So now, say for example, I didn't select my slab and I click on the slab tool. And now I want to just draw my void. So I click here and then I click here and then nothing happens. And then you will panic. You go to 3D view, nothing happens. But actually what you have done is you have drawn another slab over here, which you have to delete. Okay, what Archicad need to know is that you have to select a slab. So it needs to know, okay, you want to do something with this slab. Then you will click on the slab tool again. And then after that, you can draw the void. And then you will know that you are trying to draw the void here. So similarly, right, as per all Archicad functionalities, like I was reiterating just now, right? Black dots and the magenta dots. Now what you have seen me doing is I hover over the black dot here and then wait for the tick to come up or the circle animation. And then now I can manipulate how I want to snap my slab to, right? And then I'm just going to fix this up. Okay. And then now you will see that this is nicely aligned to my staircase over here. Or this is like so because my wall is actually on the outside just now before I drew it. So that's not an issue. Okay. So select, and intersect. So the cool thing about Archicad is that you can also adjust it, like I mentioned earlier before, in 3D. Okay, so I fixed the slab there. Okay, just make sure that you have moved nodes. So in general, you should have something that looks like this now. And we're going to go back to our first story to finish off the rest of our slab, just to cover this portion over here. But in using the same floor slab, the generic floor slab, but with a different kind of cover fill. So click on first story. Now switch on your trace again. select the slab tool, Control T, and then scroll down, cover fill. So instead of using this cover fill over here, which is the plank floor, click on it, and you will have a whole range of choices for you to select. And we're going to choose the grid 30 times 30. So it's kind of like the 300 by 300 mm tile that we usually have. So click on this, click OK, and simply now just click on the corners and this corner here. And you have completed this. Okay, so I'll repeat. So now go back to first story. Make sure that your trace and reference is turned on. Select the slab tool over here and Control T. It's either you do that or you can also double click. It's the same thing. Scroll down under the floor plan and section menu bar. Make sure that this cover fill is checked in the checkbox. Click on the cover fill here and select 30 times 30. Okay. Then we click OK. And now I will just click on this corner to this corner. Okay. And I can also reference this floor slab and inject it to the floor slab below. You see? And now it will adjust for the floor slab below as well. Okay, so now generally we have it all set up already. We have our ground floor slab, our first story slab, the void is done for the staircase. I have my walls, internal walls, external walls. What we just need to do now is to cover it with a roof. So we just simply go to the second story, right? Because second story is where your roof will be on. Click on the roof tool. Okay. Make sure that here, you see this thing here, it's not 3,000. It shouldn't be 3,000. It automatically will reference it to be 3 meters above the level that you draw in. Just change this to 0. Right? And then now you can just draw this from, again, this corner. To this corner. Okay. And when you check in your 3D, this should be fine. Okay, the common mistake, let me just show you what's the common mistake, okay? Is that, okay, so now we are on the second story, right? And then when I draw my roof, I leave this as the default, which was 3,000 just now, right? And then I just click here and here. And when you check it in 3D, it will look something like this. Okay. Yes, it's offset from the base point with 3000. So just need to make sure that this is done like so, and then click, and this will be fine. Okay. And the interesting thing about this roof is also when you select the roof, you can always go back to the properties and you can adjust the pitch. Say, for example, instead of 45 degrees, I can change this to 30. I click OK, and you can see now that this will update itself. Okay, as well as this height. Control T again. I can change this elevation. So the elevation means the tip of the point. If I change this now to 1000 and I click somewhere else and click OK, see the height will be adjusted. I can also adjust this to 45 degrees, but yet with a 1000 elevation. What it does is that it will know that and calculate from the projection that you have as of this blue color rectangle, right? In order to achieve 45 degree, it cannot be 1000. So it automatically will override for you and then give you the final height, which if you were to select it, if we were to go to any elevation, right, and then you can use this measure tool or keyboard shortcut M, then you can measure from here to here. It's around 3200 in fact, to achieve this 45-degree pitch. Okay, so we're just going to experiment further on how we can mold the roof now. Okay, so not fixated by the numerical values, but just so that you can adjust your roof form. As mentioned earlier, always hover to a black point. And with this black point, you will be able to use these options here. For example, stretch the horizontal ridge. See, I can do it something like this. Okay, so this looks interesting, right? Now you can do something like so. Or if you are more conservative, you can move it back a bit, just like that. Okay, so there's many ways in which you can play around with the roof. So that's using the horizontal ridge tool. Okay, how about if, say, for example, now I select this point, right? Instead of using this tool, right, you can choose this elevate. So if I were to choose this, you can see here, I can move it all the way up, looking like so. Or I can also select this and move it all the way down. Okay. Another way is choose this particular corner point, and you can also manipulate it to look something like so. You see? So it allows you a lot of flexibility to be able to configure your roof to be what you want them to be. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to introduce to you uh, this tool called the object tool. Okay, so it's in the design tab, the fifth icon from the bottom. Okay, and the default one is a chair, I think, but you can always double click on this. And what I'm gonna do is I will choose something that looks more like from the outdoors, like a rocking chair. Click OK. And you can place it even in 3D. For example, now on my balcony, I want to add a rocking chair. Okay. Oh, I forgot that my first story here doesn't have any door. So I'm just gonna very quickly draw a door. And maybe just some windows, just so that it doesn't feel so sad. Okay, so now this looks more like a house. Okay, so you all can feel free to customize this, because on Thursday when we do the rendering, then this will beautify your rendering. Of course, the assessment for the rendering is not so much of how beautiful you make how beautiful you design the house to be. It's essentially uh, to see whether you know the different types of images to be generated. Okay. So we're going to do the mesh now, the terrain mesh. So we're going to go to the ground floor view here and then zoom out. And the mesh tool is located 2 icons above the object tool that I introduced to you just now. For that matter, right, the object tool, you can always go online and download more of this kind of free libraries. Okay, so to Archicad, they call them libraries. It's similar to Revit families, which you can also download from online, or you can buy them. Most of the times nowadays, a lot of furniture websites, they sell the furniture, right? They will include this kind of not only Revit families but also Archicad families, because Archicad is quite prevalent in Europe. So a lot of European um, furniture companies also provide their furniture software in PLN format, which is the Archicad file format. Okay, so by now you should already have located your mesh tool with my giant purple cursor. Now you just click here and it will prompt you to indicate the first corner of your mesh. It doesn't have to be super accurate, right? Just roughly sketch a rectangle, sorry, a square. But Ideally within the elevation text, okay, so that it doesn't crop out of your elevation text. Kind of like so. Okay, so check in your 3D. Now you have done a very nice grass patch. So similarly, you ask me, can I adjust what kind of uh, mesh that I can do? So same thing, it's either you double click on the mesh or you press Ctrl T on your keyboard, and then it will tell you, okay, what kind of slab structure it will be. In this case, there is the slab thickness, there's gravel, there's sand, then there's soil, and then water. Okay, within this, there's also how you will view them on top, at the sides, and even right below. Okay, so this is what I meant. Sides, below, and top surface. Now I just want you to continue back to the ground floor plan, and we will start to draw contour lines to make them taper around. So to do that, let's just minimize the design tab, and now open up the documentation tab. Okay, and it's located right over here on the fourth icon from below. And I just want you to draw roughly 5 curves. Okay, you don't have to specifically follow from me. Okay, this one is up to your own creativity. So I just going to start drawing um, 5 splines. So click on this, click here, 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 here. People who are familiar with Illustrator would know how spline works, right? Or even in the Photoshop pen tool. You always complete the curve by double clicking at the end. Okay, so this is my curve. At any point of time when you want to adjust the curve, so same logic, right? Select the curve or select any object, hover to the control points, which are the black points over here, and then you can adjust them. Okay. So it's really quite intuitive. You just have to be patient for the black dot. See, now I didn't wait, right? I have to go here, then the tick happens, then yeah, then you adjust. Okay, so now what you have done, if you just go back to 3D, right? You don't see any changes here. Okay. What you need to tell Archicad to do is if you go back to your design toolbar, click on the mesh tool, and then you press and hold your spacebar on the keyboard. You notice now after I press spacebar, my crosshair becomes a magic wand. Okay. If you don't see this, that's because you don't have the mesh tool selected. So make sure your mesh tool is selected. It's blue color. Then you press and hold spacebar. And when you hover across your line, you will notice that Archicad automatically draws a boundary between your spline and the mesh itself. So it's helping you carve up the mesh in accordance to the line that you have, the spline that you have just drawn. And then just click. And if I go to my 3D, you will notice very subtly, right? Just now, you didn't see these two lines here. This is where, if I were to select on my mesh now, right, it has helped me slice this off. Okay, so I just complete the workflow that I've just shown you. Make sure you have mesh tool turned on, hold on to spacebar, and then make sure that you click here, click here, click here, click here. Just now it was auto saving. Click here, and finally click here. If I have to go back to my 3D, now you will notice that it has already parceled it all out. Okay, you will notice that Archicad has become very intelligent. This is Archicad 26. Archicad 23, right? It will not necessarily identify your building as a crop for the uh, contour lines that we have just drawn. Okay, you will need to later on manually do a Boolean difference. But now for 26, it's quite intuitive. You will recognize all of this. Okay, so now just for neatness, you can select your splines earlier. You don't need them anymore. You can delete them. Okay, and now it looks like a nice, cool contour lines. Don't worry if yours doesn't look like mine. Okay, so the most important thing to do contours, right, is of course to be able to update the levels, right? So you wait for the animation to come up, the tick is there, and go to the Z, right? So this allows you to elevate the mesh point. Okay, so I want to click on this and make sure you check apply to all, because when you check apply to all, it will do it to all the black dots that you have. So the whole mesh slab will be lifted up. So click on this and I'll lift it up by 500 mm. Click OK. Now when you check on your 3D, see now it looks like a typical contour model, right? It's slabbed up. You can also do this in 3D view. It's entirely up to you. Okay, but I think it's easier to select the black dot from here, though, especially for impatient person like me. So just press 500. Okay. Now check over here. See, this is the same. So just have to repeat these steps accordingly. So this one was 500, right? So the next one will be 1000. This is my next one. Click OK. So similarly for this one, just keep increasing by 500. The second last one is this. Click on this. This is 2000. And finally, this one shall be 2500. Okay. So like a very nice contour now. Okay. Some people may just end off like this, right? Because you like the rice paddy fields kind of look. But of course, we want to make you be able to know how to make it look more three-dimensional, right? So same thing. You can also just click on the black dots and then you can move them up accordingly like so and make it very nice and smooth. Oops. In 3D view. Okay. Just have to be patient as you do this. Or you can also just type 500. Yeah, then this is much faster. So hover here, select the dot. Yeah, then now it moves. Okay. So I'm just going to smoothen it for this part. Then the rest I'll leave it as it is. For you all can adjust it accordingly. Okay. Because we need to move on. Okay. So you'll be wise to save this file now. Hmm? Okay, now what we want to do now is you will notice that the house now is a bit plain, right? We want to be able to visualize it in a variety of ways, okay, and finishes. So what we need to do is we go to options and then we go to element attributes and go down to composites. Okay, I just leave this here for a while. Okay, and then you click so. Okay, and what this allows you to have is that it will show you all the different kinds of finishes that you have had so far into your 3D model. Okay, so there's the generic slab, there's stud partition, there's concrete floor. And with this, you'll be able to adjust what kind of look you want to have. Okay, so for example, my brick double plastered over here. Once I select this, you can see that this automatically changes, right? If I click this, this is 2 layers of plaster. It's options, element attributes, and then composites. Okay. So now you will be able to change the skin. You see, as I select on each of these parts, right? The area over here will also update itself to what you are selecting. Okay, so for example, my outside top here, I can choose how I want to draw it and also what kind of um, representation that I want to draw it with. Okay. And then when I select my wall now and I scroll, so for example, now I have this, right? I can choose the composite also from here. See, when I click on this particular uh, option over here, I can adjust what kind of composites that I would like to have. So if I were to change to say this one, and then you go back to the 3D view, it will update to this particular kind of composite that we can adjust from the options, element attributes, and composite manager over here. Okay. And then now I want you to scroll after you select, for example, this particular wall, right? You scroll further until you button over here, a paintbrush button. Okay. And we can click on this paintbrush button. And just now I was explaining to you about, for example, the mesh slab earlier on, where you can see the way that it's drawn. It could be a grass and then the ground earth on the sides, and then also the brown earth at the bottom face. This is where you can override the surfaces. So it's different from composite, okay? Composite earlier is to tell you about the actual um, construction of the material, okay? So this particular uh, workflow is for you to override and just show how it will look like. So if I were to click on this part over here, right, this shows the peripheral, the side surfaces, right? I can click on this stucco, and instead of choosing stucco here, I want to be experimental. I can change this to brick and say, for example, I want to choose Flemish bond. And then it will look like this. Okay. So be mindful. Essentially, the construction of the wall is still the same. You notice just now in the earlier part of the lesson, I was uh, injecting all of the materials from here onto here, even though I was at first we drew it as a brick wall. This is just to show how you can also calibrate and have different kind of overrides for the surface for rendering purposes. Now, what you can do after you are satisfied with this generic wall with a custom brick override finish, I can use the same workflow again. I can um, use the eyedropper tool, and then now I inject here. Okay, and then now I will inject this face and also this face. Okay, so I would like for all of you to, you don't have to use this same um, Flemish bond thing that I've done. But you can choose something else for the in-class assignment, because this is just to illustrate to us that you know how to use the material override. Okay, so the last thing that I'm just going to wrap up now is I will draw some safety railings. Okay, so I draw a railing here. Click from here, 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 to here. Okay. Yep. And then of course just save the file. Okay, so for Thursday's lesson, essentially what we will be carrying on is to introduce you to the rendering tools. And then with the rendering tools, you can also make this grass look realistic. Okay, now it's flat, right, as a texture. We will show you how to make kind of photorealistic renders accordingly on Thursday. Okay, so I'm just gonna file save. And that's it for this particular session.